Have you ever stopped and thought about just how much skateboarding has changed? The skateboard itself might look similar to where it was 40 years ago. Four wheels, two trucks, a deck, and someone standing on it trying not to fall off. But when you look at it, skateboarding has changed massively since the 1980s. The difference is massive. The tricks are bigger, the boards are different, the technology has improved, the skate parks have changed, the way we watch skateboarding has even changed. And perhaps most importantly, skateboarding has gone from being seen by many people as a rebellious underground sport to becoming an Olympic sport. But what's interesting is, despite all of these changes that I'm going to mention during this video, the basic idea hasn't really changed at all. Find a skateboard, find something to skate, try something you've never tried before, and probably fall over a lot until you land it. So today we're going back to the 1980s to look at how skateboarding has really progressed. And if, like me, you've taken a long break from skateboarding and just recently got back into it, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. You know, the board hasn't really changed. It can feel a bit strange because skateboarding looks familiar, everything's still the same, but suddenly everything else just feels completely different. Now let's start in the 1980s. This was an absolutely huge period for skateboarding. Skateboarding was heavily influenced by vert skating, pool skating, and freestyle, going back to the Z-Boys, the Zephyr team in California. You know, some of the biggest names in this era included Tony Hawk, Steve Caballero, Mike McGill, Lance Mountain, and Rodney Mullen. And these guys weren't just doing the tricks that we see today. They were actually helping invent the language of modern skateboarding. The boards themselves looked completely different. A typical 1980s board was much wider than they are today. The shape was different too. The noses were wider, the wheelbases were bigger. You know, the boards were designed due to the type of skateboarding that he was doing. The Smithsonian Museum actually has a Tony Hawk deck from the 1980s. And you'll see here what it looks like and how it is completely different than the decks we have today. And then there was the equipment. Skateboarding technology was being constantly developed. Different trucks, different wheels, different deck shapes, better materials. But perhaps the biggest change during this period wasn't actually the skateboard, it was the tricks. One of the most important developments of freestyle skating came from Rodney Mullen. Mullen took the ollie and flip trick concepts into freestyle and technical skating, helping create the foundation for technical street skating that would explode during the following decades. Now the skateboard wasn't something that you could just ride around on. You could ollie it, you could flip it, you could spin it, you could jump over things, you could manipulate the deck in ways people hadn't seen before. At the same time, vert skating was becoming incredibly spectacular. Skaters were going higher and higher above the ramps, they were doing huge airs, they were doing grabs, they were doing spins, and tricks that looked completely insane to anybody watching. Tony Hawk became one of the biggest names in vert skating history, along with Lance Mountain, PLG, Bob Burnquist. I could carry on naming loads, but there was another important change happening at the same time, and that was street skating. The rise of street skateboarding. Street skating completely changed the direction of skateboarding. You no longer needed half pipes or bowls. You could just go outside, you could skate a curb, you could skate a rail, you could skate stair sets, you could even skate loading docks, which were very popular. Basically, if you could imagine the trick on it, you could probably go and try it, and this is where the influence of the ollie became enormous. The ollie allowed skaters to get themselves and their boards over obstacles, and then suddenly the entire city became open to them. Handrails became skate spots, stair sets became skate spots, banks became skate spots, and even ordinary pieces of architecture became obstacles to grind on. This was one of the biggest philosophical changes in skateboarding. You didn't need someone to build you a skate park, the world became your skate park. And this is probably the biggest reason why street skating became so dominant. All you had to do was open the door, go outside with your skateboard, and you could skate anything. It also created a completely different style in skateboarding. Vert skating consisted of going as high as you can and as fast as you can, whereas street skating, it was more about the technical tricks and the combinations of slides and grinds. Suddenly people are doing kick flips, heel flips, 50-50s, feeble grinds, smiths, anything you could imagine, and anything was possible in your neighbourhood. And eventually, combinations of tricks that would have been impossible to imagine in the early days. Each trick kept building on one another, and that trick became the foundation for another and another and another, and that's how modern skateboarding developed. Then we hit the 1990s and skateboarding changed again. The clothes changed, the sound changed, the look changed, and skateboarding became absolutely massive. Baggy trousers, oversized t-shirts, beanies, and big massive shoes that were designed not to get destroyed by the skateboard. But perhaps one of the biggest changes in skateboarding in the 90s was the introduction of the skate video. Before YouTube, before Instagram, before TikTok, if you wanted to see the best skaters in the world, then you had to watch a skate video. These videos became almost legendary. You'd buy a VHS tape, you'd put it in your TV, you'd watch the same part over and over again, you'd rewind it and try and figure out how they landed the tricks, and then you'd go outside and try it yourself. Skate videos weren't just about showing tricks. They created personalities, they created heroes, and they helped spread skateboarding across the world. This was also the era when skateboarding competitions became increasingly mainstreamed. The X Games began in 1995, giving skateboarding a huge audience around the world. And then in 1999, something happened that introduced an entire new era to skateboarding, and that was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. If you grew up around skateboarding in the 1990s and early 2000s, then there's a good chance you probably played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And if you did, then you probably spent an unhealthy amount of time trying to complete all the challenges. This game brought skateboarding into homes in a completely different way. You didn't need a skateboard, you didn't need a skate park, all you needed was a controller. And then you can go and do kickflips, grinds, and a combination of tricks in a matter of minutes. The original game launched in 1999, and it helped expose millions of people to skateboarding and skate culture around the world. And there was something else that made this game incredibly important, and that was the soundtrack. For a lot of people, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater wasn't just a game. It was an introduction to punk rock, hip hop, and alternate music. Skate culture was then reaching people around the world who hadn't even stepped foot on a skateboard. Then came the early 2000s, and skateboarding continued to get more technical. The equipment improved, and skaters became more creative and stronger. And tricks that seemed impossible started to become normal at the highest level. Skateboarding was becoming a progression sport. Every generation seemed to push things higher and longer with more combinations and more technicality. Each skater was developing their own style. That's the thing about skateboarding. Style matters, creativity matters, how you approach a trick matters, how you land a trick matters. People were developing their own individual styles. One person could do a kickflip, another person could do a kickflip, but each one could look completely different. The 2000s also saw the internet start to change. Instead of waiting weeks and weeks for a VHS to be released or a DVD to be released, you could just go online and watch a clip for yourself. This meant that skateboarding could spread much faster around the world. A person in the UK could upload a clip online within minutes, and someone in America could watch it straight away. The world of skateboarding was getting bigger. And that brings us to modern day skateboarding, and this is where things get really crazy. If you show someone in the 1980s a clip from today, then everything will look the same, the skateboard will look the same, but the tricks they're doing will seem completely impossible. Street skating today has become incredibly technical. Skaters are doing huge flips down stair sets, they're doing flips into grinds down handrails and nollie flips out, they're doing switch flips, multiple rotations into grinds. And then there's park skating, huge bowls, massive transitions, high speed lines. People are doing massive airs and multiple rotations that seem almost impossible unless you've tried them before. But probably the biggest change around skateboarding is the technology. Today, almost every skater has a high quality camera built into their phone. As soon as they do a trick, they can film it, edit it, and then upload it to the internet straight away for people to see. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, any skater can upload a trick to these platforms. Back in the 1980s, you would have had to look in a magazine or wait for a VHS tape to be released. But now, skaters around the world can see people do tricks instantly. And then, there's something that would have seemed absolutely ridiculous in the 1980s. Skateboarding is now an Olympic sport. Think about that. Something that people saw back in the day as a rebellious sport that kids did is now actually an Olympic sport. And that's incredible progression. But there has also been a debate about what this actually means for skateboarding. Because for me, and for a lot of people, skateboarding has always been about freedom. It's about creating your own tricks, finding your own spots, and not necessarily caring about organised sporting rules. Because like in the Olympics and like in Street League, competition skating is completely different. There's judges, there's scores, there's even time limits. But there's no denying it, the Olympics has brought skateboarding to millions of people around the world. And whether you love competitive skateboarding or just raw street skateboarding, there's no denying that skateboarding has come a long way. But after talking about all these changes, there's one thing that I think is really important. Skateboarding hasn't really changed the way you think it has. Yes, the boards have changed, the wheels are better, the trucks are better, the skate parks are better, and we can watch our favourite skaters anywhere in the world just at the palm of our hands. But the feeling hasn't changed. You pick up a skateboard, you push on the streets, you try new tricks, you land new tricks, you fall, you get up and try again. That hasn't changed since the 1980s. And that's probably why skateboarding has continued to survive and continue to grow. Because you don't need to be the best. You don't need to compete. You don't need to go to all different skate parks. All you need is a skateboard and the desire to learn new things. And maybe the most impressive thing about skateboarding, the tricks have progressed, the technology has progressed, but the basic idea has always remained the same. A piece of wood, 4 wheels, 2 trucks, and the freedom to do whatever you want. So whether you started skating in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010 onwards, or if you just step foot on the board, you are part of the same progression. Skateboarding hasn't finished evolving. If anything, we're just at the beginning of seeing what is possible on a skateboard. So here's to the next generation of skaters. Keep pushing, keep trying new tricks, keep falling, keep getting back up, keep filming it. Just carry on doing what you love. And if you like this video, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Share this video among your friends. I'd like to know in the comments, what decade did you start skating in? And what changes have you noticed?